Hey folks, Matt here with Basemap, your humble tutor for every state draw across the United States. And today we're talking about the state of Washington. And we're going to cover the things you need to know so you can submit an application this year and feel confident about your chances to draw. All right, number one, we got to talk deadlines. There are two deadlines in Washington. There's a multi-season deer and elk permit deadline that happens March 31st at midnight Pacific time. That one's long gone. So the one that you got to care about this year is special permit application season, which is May 15th at midnight Pacific time. Get your application in before then, otherwise you don't have a chance of drawing. One thing that you need to know about Washington is they do not have a special period for you to purchase points other than during the primary application period. So if you do not apply by May 15th, you cannot build any bonus points. In the state of Washington, you can elect to do what's called a point saver option, where you don't actually have to apply to any particular hunt. You can just purchase a point during this open period. So if that's what you plan on doing, by all means, get that done by May 15th. Okay, let's dive in and talk about the regulations and understanding the way hunts are broken up in the state. As you're looking through the regulations, you're going to see general hunts for deer and elk. Those are really all over-the-counter hunts. We'll cover that in a separate video. But then there are what's called special permit hunts. Special permit hunts are really the way that Washington does their limited drawing. And that's going to be for really every big game species other than deer and elk. And deer and elk also have these special hunts. Now, you'll see multiple categories in most species. And each of these hunt categories, you can actually submit an entirely separate application. So for deer, for instance, I think there's like 8 hunt categories. Most people would qualify for probably 3 or 4 of them. And you could actually submit, 3 or 4 separate applications with different hunt choices for each of those categories. So that's something that's unique about Washington, in that there's a lot of opportunity, and you can even draw multiple licenses or tags in the state for a particular species. So you could draw, let's say, 3 deer tags. Now, you can only harvest 1 deer. So once you harvested a deer, you would be done, and any other, licenses that you still had that went unfilled would no longer be valid. So keep that in mind. But it's a little unique in that you could draw multiple tags and have those in your pocket. Okay, so now that you understand that, one of the other things you need to know is the hunt choices that you see in the regulations can change from year to year. So you should always look at the current regulations to make sure that a hunt hasn't changed its number from last year and you're not actually applying to a hunt that you didn't mean to. Most of the hunts in the regulations, as you look through them, you'll see are restricted to a particular species, maybe a subspecies even, mule deer versus whitetail, an area, a date, and a weapon that you can use at that particular point in time. So that's the way these hunts are broken up, and they're really made, they're broken up this way to really give you the best opportunity to try to harvest an animal and have a better experience over those general licenses. Now, let's dive into the draw system and how the licenses are actually allocated across the hunts. So Washington uses what's called the squared bonus point system. In a traditional bonus point system, every applicant that applies has an opportunity to draw, and applicants with more points, bonus points, have a greater chance of drawing than those with fewer. So the way this works in Washington is, let's say I've been applying 3 years, either buying the point saver option or applying unsuccessfully. Going into this next year draw, I have 3 bonus points. Those will be squared, so 3 times 3 or 3 raised to the power of 2. So I'll have 9 entries, plus I'll get 1 for the current year. And then really what happens is I'll get random numbers that are assigned to each of those applications. My lowest one will be used to rank me against other applicants. So you can see where if you only had 1 bonus point, you have basically a worse chance of getting a low random number, and therefore a worse chance of ranking as one of the first applications that get to draw some quota. So now that we've ranked these applicants, the way that we start to allocate licenses is we start at the applicant with the lowest random number, and we're actually going to look at that applicant's entire application for the hunt category. So let's say this is a quality deer hunt. The first applicant, we would pull their application, we'd evaluate each of their hunt choices on the application, and if there was quota available, we would allocate a license to the first hunt choice that they picked, and then we would move on to the next applicant. If there was quota available for their first choice, we would give them a license. If there wasn't, we would look at their second hunt choice, and then maybe, let's say there is quota available, so they would get awarded, and then we move on to the next applicant. So that's basically the way that the draw system works. Now, you'll notice I talked about quotas. As you're looking at the hunts and the regulations, you're going to see a different quota attached to each of those hunts. And one thing that you need to understand about Washington is a lot of states, they take that quota and they apportion, let's say 90% to residents and 10% to non-residents. In Washington, that's not the case. It's just one quota. Residents and non-residents all have the same opportunity, in the sense that they're all put into the same pool. Non-residents aren't restricted to, let's say, only drawing 10%. They could draw 100, but it's super unlikely, because in Washington, it's pretty costly for a non-resident to build points. Currently, I think it's like $100 or $110 to apply to one of those hunt categories for a non-resident. So just to build points in one hunt category, it's $110 each year. So the reality is only the wealthiest non-residents really can apply to a lot of hunt categories in Washington and build points, which doesn't happen. Okay, so that's a little bit about quota. Let's talk about choices. The last thing you need to know. For most of the hunt categories, you can apply up to 4 hunt choices. You're put up to 4 hunt choices on your application, except for your quality deer and elk, in which case you can only select 2. So those are the things that you need to know for Washington this year. Good luck, and hopefully you got confidence now as you apply this year.